Okay, so welcome to this week's webcast. This week we're looking at spending some time with Rob Bramley. He's the Deputy Grand Superintendent for the province of Cheshire, and he's here to talk to us about the Holy Royal Arch, or chapter. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Andy, and thank you for the invitation.
Most welcome. Rob, thank you for taking the time out. We know how busy you are, but we really appreciate you taking the time to talk today. Now, we're not going to let you off easy. As you've probably seen from previous webcasts, we're going to start this off with 5 invasive questions at the start and another 5 at the end. So let's start as we mean to go on. Rob, what's your favourite food?
That'll be seafood, I guess.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Any particular seafood?
Well, the things I won't eat are probably, I've never tried oysters. The thought of it sort of find repulsive. And whelks. There's no way I could eat a whelk. Beyond that, I think I'm pretty much into anything.
I think I'm with you on that. Thank you. And what's your favourite film?
Well, actually, I've got 2 films. I can't separate these 2. The first one is Master and Commander, starring Russell Crowe, based on the books of Patrick O'Brien. Mm-hmm. Superb film, which is probably a compilation around about sort of 4 or 5 different books of his, but a real rip-roaring film. And the other film, which is the extended version of Das Boot, which is of submarine crew, German submarine crew during World War II.
And is the extended version a lot longer?
BBC some years ago.
Is the extended version a lot longer?
It's about 3 hours.
Oof! Wow, marathon. Okay.
It's a gripping tale. Well worth it.
Brilliant, thank you. Our third question: who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Well, I suppose that depends upon how you define fame, isn't it? If it's actually sort of shake hands with, then I dare say it's the Duke of Kent.
Okay.
But if you're looking at other people who sort of claim to be famous, then there are, well, we're here all afternoon, I'm afraid. So, for instance, Joanna Lumley's followed me up the Holland Park Road once, followed me to various shops, and I've seen Felicity Kendall on more than one occasion.
Lovely.
Simon Callow. The list is endless. Bobby Charlton in the petrol station in Knutsford.
I think there's probably a whole separate interview on famous
people. It could well be.
I get that. Thank you. What did you do as a day job, Rob?
Well, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for the past 32 years as a reproductive toxicologist.
A reproductive toxicologist?
And that's another afternoon.
What does a reproductive toxicologist do?
It was to try and ensure that, amongst other things, we didn't have, with the compounds that we were developing, new drugs that we were developing, that, amongst other things, we weren't going to cause a repeat of the thalidomide disaster. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I'm going to split this question into 2 because I'm cruel like that. What's your favourite sport?
Rugby. Generally rugby union.
Okay. And your favourite team?
That'll be Sale Sharks. I used to be a season ticket holder with them for a number of years when they were at Hayward Road in Sale and then moved over to Stockport.
Right.
Since they've moved over to Salford, it's a bit difficult to get to, so I'm afraid that I'm now an armchair follower rather than a on the terraces follower.
Excellent. Do you still scream at the telly when they're playing, though?
I only look at the results.
Okay.
Because it's never televised anymore, apart from on Channel 5, whatever it is, on a Sunday evening. And then it's 5 minutes, so you don't really see very much these days, unfortunately.
Rob, that's brilliant. We're going to have 5 equally quirky questions right at the end of the interview. Well, let's get stuck in now. So it's over to you, really. Before we start digging into your current role, obviously you've been a Freemason for a while. How long have you been a Freemason, Rob? When were you initiated and how did you get to this point?
I was initiated in December 1986. I'm actually a Suffolk Mason, Suffolk Craft Mason. I was initiated into a lodge called Setford Lodge in a little town called Woodbridge, where my father at the time was the junior deacon. Although he didn't propose me or second me. He left that to somebody else to do. And then I spent, although by that time I was working over here up this way anyway, but I still joined down there. And I spent the next 4 years occasionally visiting my mother lodge. But it was only in 1990 that I finally joined a lodge up here in Cheshire over in Knutsford. The route of that was somewhat circuitous. Somebody that we knew, my father and I knew, a farmer, he used to come shooting with us. He knew somebody, I think it was his son-in-law, worked over in North Wales, who knew somebody who was a member of a lodge in Knutsford, and I got in that way. As for the Royal Arch, I then joined the Royal Arch in 1991 to get where I've got to today. I put that down to fate, serendipity, both the same word. That in about 1998, the lodge secretary and the lodge DC both resigned for whatever reason. They needed a director of ceremonies for the lodge, and the rest, they say, is history. I then became a provincial steward in, I think it was 2001. And in 2009, I was approached by the then Deputy Grand Superintendent, Andrew Rigby, if I would consider becoming a Deputy DC of the province. I had a little interview with himself and the Deputy Provincial Grand Master at the time, Ian Cranston, and the Provincial Director of Ceremonies, Martin Barlow, and was offered the position, which you don't say no to. I did that for 4 years. I then was asked to become the Provincial Grand Director of Ceremonies. Again, you don't say no. To which I agreed. I did that for 2 years, and then completely out of the blue, I was invited to consider the position of Deputy Grand Superintendent. And I had a sleepless night, thinking things over, thinking, what's this all about? And again, you don't say no. So I said yes, and here we are today.
Brilliant. And that was when? 2016?
So that would be 2015.
2015. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. So talk to me about your role as Deputy Grand Superintendent. Just as an overview, what's involved?
Well, I suppose I'm responsible for looking after the Royal Arch Province of Cheshire. Yes, we have the Provincial Grand Master and Grand Superintendent, who is the big boss of the province. But as far as the day-to-day running of the Royal Arch Province is concerned, then that falls on my shoulders, just as the day-to-day running of the craft falls on the Deputy Provincial Grand Master's shoulders, David Dyson. So that is to ensure that things run smoothly, that any of the initiatives that are coming from the provincial steering group or from London are disseminated down through the chapters via the assistants to provincial grand principals to ensure that we have smooth running of the province on a day-to-day basis. I'm also very much involved with conducting 50th and 60th, bringing in new initiatives, that's personal 50th and 60th, bringing in new initiatives into the province, such as we've had over the recent years, things like talking heads and Royal Arch in camera, sharing the ritual, all this, just to generally inform our membership more so, and to ensure that their experience is more enjoyable. I mean, the one thing that I remember when I first joined the Royal Arch is that it was quite an active chapter. We had about 35, 36 members. And I came in, was exalted, and I just sat on the sidelines, doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably a familiar tale to many companions, certainly in the past. We just sat there doing nothing. And you think, well, what's this all about? I'm not being involved. And so I freely admit I stopped attending because I was getting nothing out of it.
Mm.
It was only when I was asked to be part of a one of the lectures, to take part in that I actually started to come back and start to enjoy myself more. And I think that's probably a common tale. So it's all a matter of being involved. But so that is part of my role, to make sure that we do engage our members in all our meetings and that they enjoy themselves. And if they don't do that, then I see that we're failing.
Thanks for that, Rob. That's a really, really unique sort of insight and a really comprehensive answer to that question. And it did sort of lead me on. There's probably, I don't know, hours that we could talk about this, but engaging companions and making sure that they feel involved in the chapter is probably fairly vital to the future of Royal Arch and individual chapters in the province. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just me saying this. I have frequent conversations with my colleagues in neighbouring provinces, and we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Mm-hmm. That if we engage the members, if we can get them to take part in ceremonies, you're more likely to take your membership. Mm. So that is an extremely important part of the role that we play, is to make sure that we're not leaving people on the sidelines, that they are very much involved. And as I say, sharing the work, sharing the ritual is a huge part of that. It's something that we've recently introduced. We have a demonstration, well, we call it a demonstration tea. It's more of an exaltation tea, to show how that can be done, that the burden of learning the ritual isn't falling upon just two people, that we have... If you play it right, you can get, if you've got enough members in the chapter, you can get 15, 16 people involved. Mm. And so that no one person then has to learn great degrees of ritual, feel pressurised into learning it all. So it's making life easier and more enjoyable for everyone.
And are you saying, just for clarification before I move on, are we saying that for somebody watching this who's maybe a brand new companion, or even a seasoned veteran who's been in chapter for a number of years, if somebody does want to contribute, then there's absolutely that opportunity to do so. And if they don't want to contribute and they're happy to just sit and watch and take part as part of the audience, then again, there's a place for everybody in each individual Royal Arch chapter in the province, isn't it? Absolutely.
Not everybody wants to get involved. They've done their bit, they've joined, and they're happy to sit on the sidelines. Yeah, there are others who want to get involved, who are keen to take part and sort of give value to the chapter, and we will accept both.
Got you. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, and I do apologise, but what percentage of craft Freemasons in Cheshire are actually Royal Arch companions?
So at the end of 2019, we had about 49%, just over 49%. Since COVID, it has probably gone down a little bit, but these sort of strange circumstances and strange times. So for the moment, we will work on end of 2019. That's 49%. You would think, well, that's brilliant. If you look at the national average across the provinces throughout the whole of the country, that's around about 33%.
Right.
So we're way above that. If you consider our near neighbours, sort of the nine provinces that we support in terms of going to visit them, then we are above all those as well. I think probably that our closest is at about 46%. Mm-hmm. I know that Cumberland Westmoreland, who have a great friend there in their Deputy Grand Superintendent, Peter Mason, mm-hmm. He said, we're now at 44%, so we're catching you. I thought, you've got a long way to go yet. But the way I see it is, whilst we have 49%, which puts us in probably about the top 5 provinces within the country in terms of craft masons, subscribing craft masons in the Royal Arch. that still leaves me with 51% who are not. Yes, I know that some have been Royal Arch Masons and have probably resigned, but that'll be a fraction of the overall 51% that is still yet to take the step.
Is it fair to say that anybody watching this, they could look in their craft lodge and say, well, half of the people in this lodge are probably Royal Arch companions and half of the people in this lodge aren't?
Well, the easiest way to tell, the easiest way for somebody who's not in the Royal Arch is to see who's wearing a Royal Arch jewel on their breast pocket.
Okay.
That could be with a white ribbon, a red ribbon, or a tricolour ribbon. And I know when I first was initiated, on that first night, yes, it was all a bit of a blur because there were 100 people crammed into a room, tiny lodge room, 100 people, you tripping over feet. That two things stuck in my memory that night. One was that a member, in fact, there were two members. One was a visitor, one was a member, wearing red aprons, whereas everybody else was wearing blue, whether it be the light blue or the garter blue. And all I didn't know at the time, the inner guard, to me, he was a chap who was just banging on the door, was wearing a white ribboned jewel on his breast pocket. Now, I could have asked my dad what that was all about, but I didn't. I thought I was still too new to the game, so I didn't. But those are the two things that stuck in my memory from that night. So to come back to your question, if a member of a craft lodge isn't a member of the Royal Arch, you can either ask somebody who's wearing a Royal Arch jewel in his pocket, or every lodge should have a lodge Royal Arch representative. And I would like to think that that person would offer him as much advice as he freely wishes to give. The one thing I would say is that under no circumstances should anybody in the chapter say you shouldn't join until you've done this, or you've got to wait 5 years or whatever. No. A Master Mason can join the Royal Arch from 4 weeks of being raised to a Master Mason and upwards. So whether it's 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years, or in one case, 40 years of joining the craft, from joining the craft into the Royal Arch, it's when the time is right for that person. And I say 40 years, it's because that actually happened about 3 years ago, where a companion, I went to a meeting over in Hyde for just a general chat about the Royal Arch. And he was there, and he said to me afterwards, nobody's ever explained that to me. I've been in 40 years, nobody's ever explained that to me. I want to join.
Brilliant.
So it is, as I've always say, it is down to the individual. You join when the time is right for you to join.
And better late than never.
Don't feel pressurised by anybody. If you want to join after 4 weeks, you join after 4 weeks.
Brilliant.
You want to leave it longer, you leave it longer. But one thing I will say is that if a member of a chapter says, "Oh no," or a lodge says you shouldn't be joining until you've gone through the chair in your craft, sorry, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You join when the time is right for you, when your circumstances say it is right for you.
That's a good message. Thank you for that. You mentioned before the diversity of your role as Deputy Grand Superintendent. Just a very quick question. Do you also get involved in the day-to-day running of the province as well, Rob?
Very much so. I mean, and I work very closely with the Deputy Provincial Grand Master on this. I mean, we are both members of what we call the steering group, which is Provincial Grand Master and Superintendent, and myself, Deputy Provincial Grand Master, and Provincial Grand Scribes as well as Provincial Grand Secretary. So we ensure that any messages that come from the steering group work out, then feed out across the province. So very much so.
Brilliant. Okay. I'm going to ask you for a succinct answer on this one. It's a huge question. I apologise for landing it on you, but how do you see Royal Arch Masonry evolving over the next 5 years, from 2020 to 2025? How do you think it's going to change?
Well, unfortunately, the situation we find ourselves is put a pause on everything. For the past 2 years, we had a campaign which we called 150 for 150. Mm-hmm. The province was celebrating 150 years since its consecration back in 1869, and our target was to exalt, so bring in 150 new companions into the Royal Arch, one for every year. There were doubts whether we would do it, but due to the sterling efforts of many chapters across the province, some of whom were brilliant and brought in multiple candidates, other chapters brought in a candidate for the first time in umpteen years, mm-hmm. that having reached our total, we want to maintain the momentum. Unfortunately, as we all know, COVID-19 has put a bit of a brake on that. But we still want to continue with that momentum that we have generated. So it's going to be hard to sort of recreate it. We've got plenty of candidates who are lined up to join. So we have a new campaign. Unfortunately, the craft stole our strap line, so we've had to back down on that one. So we've come up with our 20 companions campaign challenge or whatever, and so that is for each area. So we have 5 areas in the province, for each area to exalt 20 companions.
Okay,
we know it's possible because the areas have already done it, and so it's with the temporary hold. When we sort of get back into the swing of things, we have to work hard to start all again, to sort of regenerate that enthusiasm. It's there. So we know we've got the members. We know we have joining members. We have rejoining members. So the ones that some of those we've lost are coming back. So we're doing something right. We are generating that enthusiasm within the chapters. They want to be part of it again, and that I think is wonderful to see, that there is a move to bring for people to want to come and rejoin. At the same time, we need to try and find a way of stop or slowing down controllable losses. That's those members who are thinking of resigning. I mean, they hit us hard. We can bring in 150 companions or 80 companions a year, as we did last year. But then we may have our controllable losses and uncontrollable losses are greater than that. The uncontrollable losses, unfortunately, I can't do much about. I mean, they are the brethren and companions who pass the Grand Lodge and Grand Chapter above. Mm-hmm. Not much I can do about that, although if you look on Adelphi, we've still got members on there who are around about 113, but that's another story.
So we've got a really good initiative. It's on pause at the moment, but that initiative's going to relaunch as soon as we restart. Is that correct?
Very much so. And I say with regard to controllable losses, what I would like to do there is that if we have a companion, and same applies to the craft. If we have a brother or companion who's thinking of stepping down, resigning because of he doesn't like going out at night time, which I can understand. It's sort of the cold winter nights. Travelling is no longer that much fun. That we find a way to help them. Now that might be we find them somebody within their lodge or their chapter to offer to drive them, to be a chauffeur. But alternatively, and this what we're trying to do here is we have daylight chapters.
Okay.
We have a daylight chapter in pretty much every area, or at least one daylight chapter in every area, so that they can still meet their friends and their companions, but during the normal working day. Okay, they wouldn't be working, but it's in daylight hours. We're still able to enjoy their Royal Arch Masonry. It might not be a It might not be a three-course meal, which is probably advantageous to us all.
So there's
waistlines and all that sort of thing.
So there's changes happening. That's brilliant, and I'm sure we can sort of roll that information out as we go. I'm conscious of time. So thank you for that. It was a really, really robust and solid answer to that question. It was a huge question. So thanks for taking it in good favour. I did promise you 5 questions right at the end of the interview. So let's rattle through those if we can, Rob.
Right.
5 to finish. What's your best holiday?
I've not yet had that. It should have been next. It should have been next week.
Okay.
But I've had to cancel it. I was planning on going up to the Lake District. Mm-hmm. But as we know, the Lake District is pretty much closed. I was planning on to the Lake District to complete the final 13 Wainwrights, finishing on Scarfell Pike. There are 214 Wainwrights. I've got to 201. The final 13 were to be last week, and say Scarfell Pike to be the last. It'll be next year now.
Okay. What's one thing most people don't know about you?
The fact that I once had tea many years ago with Superman's mother. Christopher Reeve, who once played Superman. Mm-hmm. For a while, I lived and worked out in the States, in Boston. Mm-hmm. And one of the chaps I worked with, or 2 of the chaps I worked with, one of them played rugby for the Boston Mystics. And one weekend, one Saturday, Sunday, he was due to play a match down in New York City. So the 3 of us drove down to New York City, as you do. And on the way back, we called in at Christopher Reeve's mother for tea.
And well, why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. She lived in Connecticut, as I recall.
Next question. What have you felt most proud of?
I've had to think about this one. I was going to say nothing because I've done my bit, but no. Hitting or making a hole-in-one the very day that my son decided to put in his appearance into this world.
That's quite a day. Fair enough.
It was a scruffy shot. It was a par 3, 4th hole at Oldley Edge Golf Course, and the steward had to come out onto the course to find me to say your wife's gone into labour.
What a moment!
And I've still got the ball. It's a family heirloom.
Brilliant.
Although he probably doesn't know it at the moment.
Rob, what's your favourite drink?
My favourite everyday drink is probably gin and tonic, but I must admit I'm rather partial to a very chilled Pinot de Charente as an aperitif. Pinot de Charente is brandy mixed with unfermented grape juice, and it's delicious. Say chilled. Brilliant.
I'm going to throw you a curveball now. One final question: if you could have any car to drive every day, what would it be?
Aston Martin.
Which one?
The latest one.
Thank you for that. Good answer. Thanks, Rob. And to everybody watching, thank you as well. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you found it of great interest. We do have lots of people lined up to interview as we go forward, and we're going to share those interviews on YouTube, the Cheshire Masons site, Instagram, and of course by link on Twitter. But please let us know if there's someone that you'd like us to interview and why, and we'll do our very best to make that happen. Rob, thank you again. We know how valuable your time is. Thank you so much for that unique insight into yourself and to Royal Arch. And to you all for watching. Please stay safe, and I hope to see you all in person very soon.
Yeah, thank you.